All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome in everyone to part 21, three levels. Really excited about tonight. Got three really good guys. Dre was finishing up a recruiting call, so he should be on here any second. But really excited again about tonight. Again, if you're new, welcome. If you want to, you can go ahead and drop your chat, your contact information in the chat. Obviously, a lot of good coaches from all levels on here. So feel free to drop your information in the chat box and stay in touch with people. Um, just a few ground rules. If you we'll let each coach speak, and then we'll let them share their journey, whatever they want to share, and then we'll open up for questions, and then we'll move on to the next one. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first up tonight, we've got a coach that I consider a near and dear friend. Really excited to hear from him. Obviously gotten a chance to work closely with him, and then obviously as he's moved on to the next level, gotten to really follow his journey closely and stay in close contact with him. So first up tonight, we've got Coach A.W. Hamilton. Coach Hamilton did a really good job at Hargrave, obviously, where I got to meet him, and then moved on to NC State, and now is taking over at Eastern Kentucky. And just this past year was OVC Coach of the Year. So really excited to hear from AW, and I'll be quiet and go ahead and turn it over to him.
Dave, I appreciate you, man. You're the best hire I ever made, hiring you as an assistant coach years ago. But think the world of you. I appreciate you letting me get on and share my journey. Listen, so I'm done playing. I'm graduating from Marshall University. I want to be a Division I head coach. That's my goal. All right. I get a graduate assistant job for Ron Jerser at Marshall University. I remember the first day on the job, I walk in the office. I tell coach, I said, listen, man, I'm ready to do a scouting report. I'm ready to work the guys out. I can recruit. I can do everything for you. I'm ready. And he said, hey, Dub, listen, man. He said, if you want to make it in this business, you got to become the best envelope stuffer in the country. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you talking about, coach? He said, your job this year is you're going to fold and stuff 1,000 recruiting letters a day. And he said, and if you do a great job, he said, I'll help you advance your career. And so for 1 year, I was the best envelope stuffer in the country. At the end of that year, I get a phone call from a guy named Kevin Keats, who's been like a father to me. He offers me an assistant coaching job at Hargrave Military Academy. He says, listen, A-Dub, I'm going to give you a fully furnished apartment, and I'm going to pay you $10,000. I couldn't believe it. Here I go. I'm a young guy in the business. I become an assistant coach at Hargrave Military Academy. I walk into my apartment. There's a box TV and a futon. But for 5 years, my goal was I was going to be the best assistant coach in the country. I lived on a futon, had no cable, no internet, nothing like that. I became the best at whatever my role was, whether it was mopping the floor, doing the laundry, driving the bus, whatever I could do to make Coach Keats's life easier. That was my focus. I never got ahead of myself. And because of that, one day coach comes in the office and he said, hey, Dub, I got really good news for you. I'm taking an assistant coaching job at the University of Louisville, and you're going to be the next head coach at Hargrave Military Academy. I couldn't believe it, guys. I was a young guy. I became the head coach at one of the best prep schools in the country. I think the best prep school in the country. And I did that for 6 years. Did it for 6 years. I felt like I was coaching the Boston Celtics. I got married. I started a family. Coached a lot of great players, a lot of great young people, had guys make it to the NBA. Montrezl Harrell, Terry Rozier, both got drafted in the NBA draft, won a national championship. But as I was going through that, my ultimate goal was to become a Division I head coach. And I knew at a Hargrave, I couldn't get a Division I head coaching job. It was almost going to be impossible. And listen, I've never treated my goals like a New Year's resolution. I've always written them down on a piece of paper. I've always put them up on my mirror. I've been doing that since I was in the 8th grade. One of my goals was to become a Division I head coach. I got 3 $1 million checks on my mirror, $1 million for each of my kids when they turn 18 years old. So Kevin Keats gets the head coaching job at North Carolina State. And I never forget, I call him and I say, Coach, listen, I'll do anything to come work for you at NC State, whatever it is. And he said, hey, all you got to do is tell me you want to come and I'm going to hire you right away. So I get on at NC State. I had to go back to being an assistant coach, which was an adjustment, but I had to reprogram myself to my number one goal was to do anything and everything I know. And I busted my ass recruiting. And I was fortunate because at the end of that year, Eastern Kentucky came open. And when the job came open, I did not have an agent. So what I did was I stalked the athletic director until he finally called me. I wrote him letters. I called him. I emailed him. I sent him a pair of scissors. I sent him a hard hat. And the guy finally calls me and he said, "Hey, Dub, listen, man, it's going to be hard for you to get this job, but, I got over 200 people that applied, but I'll sit down and talk to you." So it ends up, we sit down, we have a conversation. Next thing I know, I'm getting flown in for an interview. I ended up getting the head coaching job at Eastern Kentucky. Very fortunate, very lucky. But the thing I'll tell you as an assistant coach, one, you got to be loyal, man. You got to be loyal. You got to be the best at whatever your job is, whether your job is to prepare the gym for game days, whether your job is to recruit, to scout, to do player development, whatever it is, do the best at your job. Don't get ahead of yourself. All right. Add value while you're working in that program. I tell all my young guys on my staff right now, you got to learn Photoshop. You got to learn how to do video. You got to add value. So when these type of jobs open up, you can get your foot in the door. And then listen, you got to be prepared. I think a lot of times guys aren't prepared and it shows up in their work and they have a hard time advancing themselves in this business. This is a hard business to advance yourself. But if you're prepared, you're loyal, you become the best at whatever your role is and you add value to yourself, you can make it and you get on with the right people, you can make it in this business. And this is what I say about being a head coach, and I'll stand by this forever. I think to be a successful head coach, and I look at Des and, what they do at Tennessee, it's unbelievable. But, you got to have a brand and you got to have an identity. Our brand at Eastern Kentucky is the most exciting 40 minutes in sports. Our identity is we're going to press for 40 minutes and we're going to play as fast as we possibly can. In my first 2 years here, we've been top 5 in the country in tempo, top 5 in the country in steals per game, top 5 in the country in forced turnovers. So you got to have a brand and you got to have an identity. When you get your shot to become a head coach, everybody, if you watch everybody's press conference, they always get up there and say, we're going to play fast and we're going to be exciting. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you look at their style of play, they're walking the ball up and down the court. They're 300th in the country in tempo. So, whatever your brand is, whatever your identity, I think that's the key to success when you become a head coach. So, Dave, I didn't want to talk too long. I wanted guys to be able to ask me questions and do all that type of stuff. So if anybody's got anything for me, I'd love to answer any type of questions.
If anyone has any questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself, name, and what program you're affiliated with.
Hey, Coach, this is Darrell Robinson, head boys basketball coach at Danville High School in Illinois. How big are you guys on analytics?
Coach, we're big, probably not as big as a lot of other programs. We do a lot of stuff, with our defensive numbers and those type of things. Most of our goals that we've got are based around defense rather than a lot of offensive stuff. So we're big on, 50 deflections, forcing 20 turnovers per game. Those are big numbers for us. We try to measure more on effort than a lot of other analytics.
Okay, thank you.
Coach Hamilton, it's Russ at Tennessee State, man. How are you?
What's up, Russ? How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Can you send me the keys to that press? We can't seem to break it.
Sure. Hey, you got a superstar as a head coach. I love your guy. I love him.
Yeah, man. He's the best, buddy. He's the best. I enjoyed watching your video, man. Proud of you, man. You keep doing big things, okay?
I appreciate you, man. You're a great friend.
Yes, sir.
Coach Hamilton, Timothy Pete with Missouri Western State. You got one of my former guys, Shaq Fay, with you right now.
Hey, can I say something before you say something? I love him, man. I love him. Hey,
favorite kids.
he is working his tail off. man, you should see his body, how it transformed over the summer. Man, he is shooting the leather off the basketball, man. He's been awesome. He's been awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Just tell him to shoot it, or you gonna tell me I'll text and mess with him if he don't shoot it. But my question is, you guys play so hard, man. It's like you guys play through the whistle all the time in your press and your defensive mentality. Do you guys practice that? Do you guys play with the whistle in practice? Do you allow your guys to fight, scrap and fight for the ball in practice? Like, what are some things you do in practice to keep that mentality going?
Coach, my bad. My internet kind of got a little shaky there.
Okay. So my question is, how do you get your guys to have a defensive mentality to play through the whistle, to play really hard? Are there some things you do in practice, drill-wise, or you guys let them know out of bounds? Because I played for a coach that we didn't have out of bounds in practice. We fight for the ball until somebody come up with it.
Coach, what we do is we go for 94 minutes every day. Once we get into our season and we get into where we can practice 20 hours a week, literally we go for 94 minutes in the afternoon, and we do all our skill work in the morning, whether it be 25 minutes to 30 minutes in the mornings. But for 94 minutes, man, I mean, we just get after it. And I'm absolutely crazy in practice, and get these guys to play extremely hard. We press and, we trap nonstop, and we're just relentless. So to play for me and be successful, I mean, you got to play that way. And so, there's nothing magic that we do. It's just, we don't go long, we go short, 94 minutes, and we just compete like crazy.
No, I'll ask you one. Obviously, I don't know how many people have seen your video, but can you just talk about what that, obviously we often learn the most about ourselves, and obviously too, who the people around us are that value us the most when we're going through our tough time. Can you just talk about a little bit about, what you learned about yourself in that time?
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't know and you're listening, this summer I got diagnosed with stage 2 melanoma, and it was scary for me. Obviously, any type of cancer is obviously scary. Melanoma is one of the most unpredictable cancers you can have, and it can spread like wildfire. But I had a cousin who died when he was 13 of melanoma, and when I got diagnosed, I got myself in a dark place where I was thinking the worst. And when I was in that place, I had to find comfort, and and I needed help. And we all have that one person in our life that we go to, that go-to person. That person is my mom for me. And I call her and I say, listen, am I going to be all right? And am I really going to be okay? And she said, yes. She said, look, God's got a bigger plan for you. And, I put all my faith in God, and prayed and trusted and believed. And and no matter what, how bad of battle I was going to face, I was going to get through it. So I sat down and made a new goal, is to beat cancer, tell my story, and save somebody else's life, because somebody saved my life this summer. My brother-in-law, he had a stroke, and we're the same age. He's the healthiest dude I know. And the day he had a stroke, I called my doctor and set up a physical. And I hadn't got a physical since 2004. And if I didn't get a physical and I didn't catch my cancer at stage 2, there's no telling what would have happened to me, because I had no symptoms. I felt great. I had tons of energy, drive, passion, all that. And, and my doctor, I asked him about it. He said, look, man, he said, sometimes you don't ever have a symptom. And then this thing can hit you all at once. And with melanoma, you could wake up and the cancer could be all over your body. So, I try to reach out to a lot of people this summer, and just to encourage them, and people in our profession, because our profession, things start happening so fast, whether it's recruiting, and we got our guys on campus, and then, we get in season, we get in practice, we get in workouts, and then there's all these other things you do as a head coach too, whether you're speaking engagements or whatever it is. And sometimes you just put things off, and I just kept putting off getting a physical. So, I was very fortunate, and I would tell all you guys out there, man, put your health first, make sure you stay on top of it, make sure you're getting a yearly physical. If you got something, any type of mole, go see your dermatologist. Listen, my mole looked like just an average mole. And literally I would have never got it checked if my doctor didn't send me to the dermatologist. So, God is great, man. And, he does have a bigger plan for me. And as we reached out, and I reached out to more people this summer, I've got a lot of feedback. 400 or 500 people have, called me, texted me, emailed me, written me letters, saying they went and got a physical. They went to a dermatologist. So, we're all in the same business, and we know how fast things go. So, that's what I wanted to do, Dave, is try to reach out and help as many people as I could.
Does anyone else have any more questions for Coach Hamilton? Well, Doug, brother, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us tonight. Obviously, you know how much I think about you and what I think about you. And, man, I'm super glad that you're obviously here with us, and I know you're going to be for a long time. And I can't wait to see more 40 minutes of the best basketball.
And Dave, listen, I know I tell you this all the time, but I love you, brother. You're one of the greatest of all time, man. I admire you, look up to you, respect you, and, I'm always here for you. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Love you too, brother. Next up tonight, we'll go to Coach Desmond Oliver. Obviously, Coach Oliver's been in our business for a long time, and I don't know if I ever told him this. Him and I actually just got connected, but I've actually admired Coach Oliver from a distance for a while, back to his days at UNC Charlotte. I thought he's done a really good job, and really admired the way he's always carried himself on the road. Kind of that whole quote of, you never know who's watching. Not that I'm anybody that's going to ever hire him, but you never know who's watching, whether it's people above you looking, maybe to bring you up, or people behind you coming that are watching things you do. And he's always been one that I've really admired. So I'm really excited to hear from Coach Oliver. So I'll turn it over to him.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, David. I'm excited to share my, my story and my why, so to speak. Well, it begins, I'm from Buffalo, New York, born and raised in Buffalo, New York. For those that don't know, Buffalo is located, it's about 300 miles west of Albany, which is the state capital of New York. I grew up on the east side of Buffalo. I was raised by the late Miss Brenda Oliver. My mom served as both, mother and father to me growing up. And like a lot of kids, early on in a very challenging neighborhood, she realized that sports was a way to keep me out of trouble. So right around middle school, I think I started playing some ball around, 7th, 8th grade. To be honest, I wasn't very good at it. As a matter of fact, I was one of the worst players probably out there, not very coordinated and slow and not very athletic early on. But I liked the sport. I'll make a long story short, I ended up playing just 1 year of organized high school basketball. However, right around my sophomore year, I made a decision that I was going to use basketball and academics as a vice to get out of my neighborhood and to get a scholarship to college, which is, people thought I was crazy, being as bad as I was and not very talented. So early on, I became my own player development guy. I didn't have any coaches that wanted to work with me. I wasn't good enough. I just watched games and I would steal moves off of great players. Back then it was Isaiah Thomas and, Chris Jackson at LSU and just any great guard, Kenny Anderson when he was at, in high school and college, just steal moves and go outside and practice a lot. Well, I ended up being a 1-year starter as a senior, and I kind of went from nothing to something. I went from one of the worst players in the city to one of the best players in the city. And I ended up getting a scholarship to Dominican College and played Division II basketball. I like to think that right now, there was 150 Division I schools when I came out. There's over 350 right now. I like to think that talent-wise, if I came out right now, I'd probably be a low major, mid-major Division I, player, just based on my size and skill set. I was a 3-year starter at Dominican. I was captain for 3 years. In the residence halls, I was an RA for 3 years. So I think it was, early on, it was pretty obvious that my personality type was such where I was kind of a leader. I wasn't afraid to express myself and communicate to young people, to my peers. I graduated from Dominican in '94. And my goal was real simple. I was really focused on getting my PhD. I wanted to be an AD, a college president, or something in higher education, because I knew I wanted to help young people. I wanted to help them graduate. I wanted to help focus their minds academically, and then career-wise after academics on, getting jobs and careers. But I always had this infatuation, this thirst, this love, this passion for ball, and this dream of playing Division I ball. So after 2 years of grad school, I had got my master's degree at Buffalo State College, and I was a little tired of writing papers and studying for tests and just preparing for school. Jack Armstrong, who at the time was the youngest Division I coach in the country at Niagara University, Jack offered me a position that paid $3,000, housing for $100 a month, and a meal plan to come and be, at that time, I think I was labeled the administrative assistant at Niagara. And that was probably the best job I've had to date in a sense of development and growth. Literally, I ran the whole academic program, study halls, class checks. I was the guy checking the classes. I was the guy sit down, making sure our guys were in the right classes, checking the registrar's registration for our guys, player development, mentoring, babysitting, counseling, helping with scouting reports, video. I mean, everything you can imagine the job entails now. Like at Tennessee, we have so many people to help out and do those jobs. I did that by myself, as a rookie first-year guy back at Niagara. And then when that year was over, I couldn't afford to be there anymore. I was going to leave. A guy named Ryan Ford, who was on staff there, really good friend of mine, Ryan decided to get out of the business and go work for Jostens and sell, rings and different things. So Coach Armstrong bumped me up 2 spots from admin to full-time assistant coach. And it began over a 25-year career Division I, coaching. In that time frame, I've coached at every single level, from low Division I, every type of league, from the Ivy League to the Atlantic 10. And I've been at, several high majors, Georgia, Tennessee, and the Texas A&M. And every situation, from tournament teams to teams going back-to-back, conference championships, number 1 in the country, trying to win national championships, to teams on probation, to teams, inheriting teams on probation, to teams that were the worst in their league, and having some obstacles in front of them. So I feel like right now, after all that time in the business, I'm ready to be a Division I head coach. I was blessed, at the end of it, to work for a lot of different head coaches and end up here at Tennessee with Rick Barnes. And I thought it was perfect because, God forbid, my first job would have been for coach, and my resume would have gotten loaded with wins and, all these accolades. And maybe I wouldn't have been as ready as I am right now to be a Division I head coach. I love the fact that I've had to do it differently. My path has been different than most guys. I didn't play Division I. I didn't play for a Power 5 head coach. I wasn't a 5-star recruit. I've had to outwork people and do it the right way. And I pride myself on doing things the right way. Now I'm at Tennessee. When I came in here, 5 years ago with Rob Lanier and Chris Ogden, my goal was, I knew that those guys were with Coach Barnes at Texas, and that they, kind of had a different recruiting area, different responsibilities with Coach. All I wanted to do was find a way to make an impact on Coach's staff. Anything that he asked me to do, I wanted to be there for him. And really what it came down to early on was taking over recruiting, being that coordinator, putting a 4-hour radius around our campus and saying, we got to know every player within 4.5 to 5 hours of campus here, whether it be Ohio or Atlanta, Carolina, South Carolina, North Carolina, just doing a great job in that area. And then a great job in player development, and a tremendous job in scouting. So I say all that to all the guys who are listening to say to you, no matter what job you have right now, there's no job more important than that. And sometimes your role will change because inevitably your work ethic and passion will change it. For example, I was never given a job description when I got hired by Coach. He never said, here's what I want you to do. I simply looked at our staff and I said, Rob Lanier is a former head coach. I knew that Rob would be, Coach Barnes' right-hand man when it came to X's and O's because he was a former head coach. So I looked at what I thought we needed. Chris Ogden was a former player, so Ogden kind of had a feel that most of us wouldn't have because he played for Coach. Just try to find a way where I felt like if our team was a basketball team and we were players and we had guys who were scoring 25 and 18 and getting buckets offensively, that we need a defensive stopper, a rebounder, a guy that would turn the ball over. And I became that guy. And every year, hell, every few months, my role seemed to change because coaches kept putting more on my plate. So I'm at Tennessee. I'm super excited. I got a great family. 2 boys, Dante and is 16 now, is a sophomore in high school, and young Dallas just turned 11 yesterday. And ironically, being someone of color who, again, I said I was raised by Desmond Oliver, who served, both mother and father. My dad was never a part of my life. So I never had an opportunity to have a father that took me outside and showed me how to hoop. The business has really helped me raise my kids. Like every recruit I get in contact with, every dad, every mother, every grandfather that's involved, every uncle, I ask them questions on what did you do to help your son become the student he is and the athlete he is. And I've been fortunate to raise 2 young guys who I think are going to play Division I basketball. I think both guys are going to play at our level one day, if both guys continue to grow, physically. So the job has been great. These jobs are unbelievable. I think they're positions that if you look at what you're doing, the lives you're impacting, it's incredible. I've coached guys who are in the NBA currently. I've coached guys who played in the NBA years ago, a ton of guys who have gone overseas, but more importantly, a bunch of guys that when I talk to them 5 and 10 years later that say, we wouldn't have graduated had you not recruited us, brought us to your program, made your home our home, mentored us, been a big brother, put your foot in our butt when we needed it. We wouldn't have graduated and we wouldn't have saw the big picture. Because I've always told guys, you better not allow me to recruit you and talk basketball and not get you here and challenge you off the court to be the best student you can to network when you're here. Because once you're gone, they forget about you if you don't, make sure that they don't. So, the job has been great. I love what I do. And with that being said, I'd love to take on any questions you guys might have.
Coach, Darrell Robinson, Danville High School in Danville, Illinois. What do you guys preach about culture?
Well, I'll say this with culture. That's a big word. And, basically it's been a reason why we've gone from being a team that wasn't a factor before a coach got here, for the most part, to a team that's been a factor every year in the SEC academically in terms of competing on campus. With high character guys on our team, which is just as important as winning championships, and a team that can compete with Kentucky and the others. They've always had good teams here, but I'm talking about competing in life in every aspect. So culture has started with recruiting. Honestly, I don't want to chase around dudes. So, I don't want to bring in somebody who I know their entire life, they haven't had the type of, habits that we preach and want to have in our program. So I want to bring in guys that fit the mold that we talk about. One, kids that want to graduate college, kids that love basketball and that have talent, obviously, kids with high character, and then kids that have a tremendous drive. I think back to my story, just talking about myself early on, hell, I got cut from my high school team as a freshman and sophomore, but I had drive and I just wanted to prove people wrong. I think everyone's got a story, whether it be a 4-star guy, want to be a 5-star, a 5-star guy that's just not getting his just due. We all have a story, and I want those guys to come on board and share their story and use that as fuel. So culture-wise, we bring in the right type of people, and my theory is if you bring in enough people that think the same way, and you have 2 or 3 guys that might not, those guys will change their mindset real fast.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coach, Sean Tucker, Chesapeake College women basketball. I got a question for you. Been on a couple Zooms, and they talk about recruiting versus evaluating, excuse me. How do you feel about those? What are your thoughts on recruiting versus evaluating?
I think they're two different things. I mean, certainly evaluation probably comes first, right? Like one, I want to see that transcript, kind of ASAP to find out, are they going to school? Are they skipping school? Are they missing, like not showing up? Because that says a lot about their character. And then I want to watch them and, watch them in every environment. I want to watch players in the spring in AAU. I want to watch players play in the summer in AAU. I want to watch open gym in the fall and try to watch a game or two come this season, because sometimes you get tricked. You'll get a kid maybe that, that looks great in AAU, that doesn't run any offense, that just plays street ball, and all of a sudden now you're putting in sets and the kid can't really read a set. So I think evaluation comes first, and then the recruiting comes when you realize who you want. Like, I've identified these are the 3 or 4 guys that we think fit our program. I think now you got to find out, from them, what are they looking for? Like, I don't waste time on guys I don't think we can get. So if I got a guy that I look at and say, this guy might need 3 or 4 years, or he might not be a pro, but yet I'm talking to the parents and, talking to prospect, all they talking about is being one and done. And I know that they're not that caliber. I'm not going to lie to you, recruit you, bring you in our program. And then when you're not one and done, you're blaming us because you haven't made it. So fit, all of that stuff goes into it. But recruiting, I think, and evaluating players are 2 different things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coach Oliver, congratulations on the big commit with Kennedy too as well.
I appreciate it.
My question is, you talked about your niche and how you got into the business of, you thought you wanted to do one thing in administration and you kind of just worked your way in. How has your niche changed the longer you've been in the business, and what you've gotten really, really good at?
Well, it was different. Like growing up, I mean, growing up in Buffalo was different. A lot of my friends, were struggling, to be honest with you. Life was hard. I mean, like, my kids don't really get it. Like, I talk to my kids about how I grew up, and my life is like a movie to them. Like, my kids are like, there's no way that happened growing up. Like, nah, you lying, Dad. And there's some incredible stories. So I got to a point where I just wanted to make it. Like, just get out of the neighborhood and have a chance to make it, survive, get a job, just be a regular person and not worry about, eating and having a meal and a roof over my head. Just wanted to make it. And I knew that I would have more passion to do things if I try to do things I love. And I love competition. I love competing in general. And I learned to love basketball, right? So my niche was, I wouldn't have made it without people helping me. I had people, different neighborhoods, teachers, white teachers, black teachers, old and young, that saw something in a young Des Oliver that when things weren't going right and I was getting cut from a high school team, that just kept saying, you know what, man, just keep trying, work harder. Like, there's no reason why, because you're not good enough today, you can't be good enough tomorrow. So in my mind, I felt like in life, how many times do we read about or watch TV and you hear people that their story is just impactful because they went from nothing to something. Like, they were struggling as teenagers. I heard our president, potential candidate Joe Biden, talking about how he stuttered when he was a kid. This guy's running for president and speaks as good as anybody. Like, those are stories that I wanted to be a part of, changing lives somehow, some way through education. It hasn't changed because, quite frankly, if I hadn't coached Division I basketball, my plan was always going to be to come back and contribute, whether it be a boys club, boys and girls club coach. Now AAU is a big thing. I would have certainly been an AAU coach if I wasn't doing this full time, and really put a perspective on it that a lot of people, folks can't, because if I'm in higher education, if I'm, a director of a program or something, not an AD per se, but doing something else, my perspective would be different than most AAU coaches on higher education. So that's never changed. It's been a passion for basketball and a passion to help people. Like, I don't think there's enough communication, enough conversation about wanting to help people, whether it be making your jump shot better or by opening your mind up to realizing what you're good at. Like, I'm amazed how many kids we get coming to college that talk about who they want to be after basketball, and it's all based on what their parents do. I'm like, no, what do you want to do? Like, I know your dad's a doctor, your dad might be a coach, so it's easy to say that. what do you want to do? Well, I don't know, coach. What are you good at? Like, to me, those are the conversations, man, that have really helped me identify, making those changes and talking to young people.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Coach Oliver.
Coach Oliver, Peyton. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
You got it. Go for it.
Coach Oliver's Peyton Croft, head high school coach at Mayfield High School in Western Kentucky. As a high school coach, what are things that you wish kids that you recruited knew more of coming into Tennessee or into the collegiate level that maybe they weren't taught through their 4 years in high school?
Great. That's a great question. The number one thing that we complain about, and we complain way too much, but we complain a lot about our players, as freshmen, and typically it really is two things. The really good players never really get pushed because I think coaches at the high school sector sometimes or AAU level are afraid of losing them, right?
Absolutely.
They're afraid of really just coaching them hard. I plead with people. So we're different kind of parents. We ask for that teacher at school that's just older and mature. And normally it's a female and she ain't taking no nonsense. And we ask for her with our kids because she'll keep her foot, far up in them and pushing them hard. And on the court, I plead with guys to coach my kids hard. Be fair, hug them when they, do something right. But because they're, sometimes the better players, I don't want that better player treatment. So I think that first and foremost, it's been that. It's coaching them hard, telling them, you know what, I don't want that shot or that's a bad play. Because now they come here and Coach Byron's going to tell you the truth. They want it, right? And then secondly, the game has evolved. Like, it's amazing looking at the NBA right now, how they play today. And when I first started watching them way back when I'm watching, Michael Jordan and the Bulls and the Pistons back in the Isaiah Thomas era, the game is just totally different. But the stuff that they're running is different. So if I were a high school coach, I would certainly try to look at what level my players could go to on my roster. If I have Division III guys, well, how do Division III programs play? Can I run something? I mean, certainly winning is most important. Find a way to win games, but can you put in a couple sets that they can identify with at that Division III level where, if they come in someplace, it's not totally foreign because maybe the high school team just ran 4 out, 1 in the whole time and no sets. And now the guy gets Division III, 2 or 1, and they're running complicated offense.
So, yeah, I agree with that. So you think structuring your individual improvement in practice around the level of player that you got as far as trying to get them next level is important? No
question. No, like finding a way to structure your style of play around winning first. Yeah, that's the most important. But looking at your best players and saying, how can I help those guys get to where they want to get to by running the right things offensively and defensively? Like for us at Tennessee, everything we do is about winning a national championship and helping our guys get to the NBA. Everything. And really, coach will tell you, if he has to, sacrifice maybe cutting the nets down over putting 5 or 6 guys in the league, he's like, I'll take a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 run all day, every day, if that meant we're running the right things for our players to get noticed and go on and make some money when they're done playing versus playing a certain way where I benefit from it, but our players don't.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coach Oliver.
Yes, sir.
This is Will White. I was most recently a GA at UNCG. Just a question for you. You've been somewhere everywhere.
Yes,
what do you think your next move is as far as becoming a head coach?
Well, the last 4 years, I've interviewed for 3 head coaching jobs. The first interview, I wasn't really a strong candidate, but the guy interviewed me, I think just as a favor. I liked it because it gave me a chance to practice. I thought I had a job in Atlanta that was, I felt like I was going to get it. My boss thought I was going to get it. So I was close. I was 1 or 2. And then last year I interviewed for a job last year in a pretty good league. And I thought I had a shot to be 1 of 5 for that one. And I just didn't get to the finalists. So I feel like I'm close. And I didn't, the thing that I missed on, and now today I understand better is the landscape of getting a head Division I job is different than what it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the elite coach, Rick Barnes, can make a phone call to the AD and say, I want you to hire my boy. He's killing it right now. He's really, really good. Boom, boom, boom. And then you're going to get that job. Now you got search firms who are involved. You've got agents. And there's some agents out there who are really good. Like they're former ADs or they've been connected. They just know these ADs. And they would make a phone call and get their guys on the phone with people. You know, so I was going after my head jobs solo because in my mind, I said, you know, I'm a self-made guy. I'm going to do it on my own. And at the end of the day, I felt like there was, you know, that candidate that beat me had an agent or someone that knew the AD that was checking after the interview, was calling and sending information, and it was just me, you know. So I think like this. I mean, certainly we have one of the best teams that we feel like we fielded here at Tennessee over the last 5 years on campus right now. We have a national championship roster. If we coach them right, and if COVID doesn't defeat us, we got a chance to be really special. With that, I think there'll be some opportunities. If not, you know what? I'm gonna work my butt off for Coach Barnes and these Tennessee Volunteer fans and do my best. If me being a career assistant coach ends up being the deal, then so be it. But I really do feel like in the next couple of years, I'm gonna have a chance to call my own timeouts at the Division I level and be a Division I head coach for sure.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Coach Oliver, David Belfield from Army West Point. You know, with the success that you guys have had and the way you guys play deep into the season, how does that affect and how do you handle going through the interview process when your team is still playing? Because I'm sure, you know, a lot of the jobs that are opening up and those things are taking place while you guys are preparing and still playing in games.
Yeah, you know, that job I mentioned, you know, the second interview that I had for head coach a couple of years ago when I thought I had, our team was playing against Purdue. I think it was a week before our Purdue game or a few days prior to our Purdue game. It wasn't my scout. And I remember my cell phone was blowing up. I was talking to several people in that camp, you know, other ADs at the school about, you know, sitting down and having a formal face-to-face interview. I'm not gonna lie to you, you know, it's a distraction. Like it's hard because I mean you're trying to focus on your team, but the reality is these are once in a lifetime opportunities, you know. And again, I'm not very emotional. Like I'm not an emotional, super rah, you know, get mad or angry or too fired up type of guy. I try to stay pretty even keel. But in my heart, I was excited, you know, and I wanted to get that job, but also wanted to get to the Final Four. So I mean, I didn't sleep very much. I was up all night scouting, you know, trying to get prepared. I don't really know the answer to that. Like it's one of those deals where everyone's going to handle it differently. I just tried to be as loyal as I could to our volunteer fans and our, you know, our team and make sure I didn't cheat our, you know, our program. So whatever time I spent on me, it was after I was done for that day preparing Tennessee for the next phase of the tournament.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Des, I'll ask one. I thought it was interesting when you talked about you got to Tennessee, and obviously Coach Lanier being a former head coach, and then Augie having played for Coach and been with him for so long. You kind of looked at what you thought you guys needed to kind of fill that sort of gap, if you will.
Yes.
So can you have you had to do that at other stops and it been a different role? Whereas maybe you might, you know, whether it be skill D with guards and bigs, maybe you have bigs, now you got to go to guards, or you know, maybe you need to be more of a liaison with this staff and less with this staff. Can you talk about kind of how that's been throughout your career?
Sure. Well, that's another great question that makes me think, you know, it's funny. The majority of jobs I've gotten, I mean, I've been at St. Bonaventure, Rhode Island, Charlotte, Tennessee, Georgia. There isn't a job I've gotten where I haven't been the third guy hired. I've been the last guy brought on board. Like Coach has his staff. He's got two guys. Maybe one guy was with him before. That's kind of his guy. And I've been brought in. And I remember, you know, getting phone calls from colleagues of mine asking me, you know, are you the third guy? Are you the second? Are you number one? And I've always said to people, you know, I'm never worried about that because my whole thing is if I do my job at a high level, the coach gonna know what I'm doing and respect me at a high level. So like I've never known what coach I was, what number I was, because I've always felt like whatever job it is in front of me, I want to do the best job at that anyone in the country is doing, and without, you know, bragging on myself and telling my boss, making sure that he can see it, right? So I'm here, think about it. Rob Lanier is on staff at Tennessee, associate head coach. Chris Ogden is on staff, and Chris played for coach and worked for him at Texas. So on paper, I was the third guy. Never felt that way, and that wasn't the case because coach allows us all to coach. So, you know, I'd say this to you guys, you know, every job has its values. You find out what your boss wants from you and go knock it out the box. And then look at your program and say, what are we lacking right now? Like based on what our staff is providing for our players, what aren't we getting that we need to get to be better? And every staff has it, whether it be if you're a young guy. When I was a young guy and I didn't have any kids and family, I lived with our players. When I tell you every Friday night, I would go shopping. I'd go to Sam's or someplace like a Sam's Club and go load up on food. I'd find out what, you know, back then boxing was really big when I was single. You know, Mike Tyson fights were on. I would get our team by the house once a week, just me. And we would hang out and I would just get in their heads about life. And, you know, we just kind of hanging out, you know, kicking it. And I just felt like they needed to have that time away from basketball. And I was 29, I was 30. I wasn't too, you know, much older than our guys. And I realized that by doing that, I could say whatever I wanted to say to them. When they messed up, I grab a guy one-on-one and lay into them, and they knew I loved them and respected them. But our program needed that. Like nobody else was doing it. We had older coaches that had families that just couldn't take that time, you know, from their kids to be on campus at 10 o'clock at night in the dorm because a guy broke up with his girlfriend. They had an argument, and that's an issue. So I just took all those responsibilities, and you'll be amazed. That stuff gets back to the head coach, and he's like, "Oh, so Des put out that fire? Oh, really? Okay." Like, there's something on the staffs you guys are on right now that your players aren't getting, and the key is identifying what they're not getting, and go do it. I tell my kids, you know, the kids on our team, after John Fulkerson, our best player, he gonna get his 18, 19. We got these 2 freshmen who might be one and done, like they're really special. The other 5 or 6 guys that play a lot of minutes, what else do we need? We got scoring covered, most likely. What else can you bring? Can you bring high percentage shots? Can you bring rebounding? Can you bring defense? So we preach to our teams, right, to find a way to be role players, when sometimes as coaches, we don't really see the opportunities ourselves to be role players on our staff. And I think we're all role players, associate head coaches, whoever you are, we're all role players to the head coach.
Thank you.
So, yes, sir.
Coach, I've heard you mention a few times that you like to get into players' heads and, you know, get to know them on a personal level, and not only that, but build that relationship with them on a personal level. How do you handle that between being a coach and then also being their guy as well? Like, how do you maintain both that sides of the relationship?
Great question. You know what? It's a good question, and it's a tough answer. I'm a dad, and I'll say this to you. You know, the hardest thing in the world when you're a parent is telling your kid no. But I tell them no every day at some point for something, whether it be, you know, don't be on your cell phone at dinner time or whatever it is. It's saying no to them or having to check them on something. And you know what? I'm at a point where, you know what? I mean, I'm old school. I don't really care how they feel because the reality is I know better. I've been around a little bit longer. Like, I believe in mentors. Like, I have 3 or 4, you know, people who are older than me in their 60s and 70s who I reach out to on everything that's a big topic, whether it be investing, getting a financial planner. When I got married, I reached out to guys that were divorced and happily married and asked them what went wrong in their divorce, how they stayed married, to get advice on doing the right thing and being the best husband I could be. And that sounds corny as hell, but if you're married, you'll realize it's a hard ass task. So just get to a point where, you know what, I'm gonna do right. I'm gonna do my best for you, work my butt off for our guys, and tell our guys the truth. If they don't like it, then they probably shouldn't be at Tennessee, because If the truth hurts, it's the wrong program for you. And you'll be amazed how many kids respect it. Like, I respected the coaches that told me, you know what, you ain't good enough because you don't defend, you ain't quick enough, you don't run fast enough. So next year, go get better. And if you do, that spot's yours. As opposed to BSing me and saying, no, you're good. Just be patient. No, tell me what I need to do. I think most people want to hear the truth. So great question.
Coach, I have another quick question. Last week we saw basketball kind of come to a standstill with all the things that are going on outside of basketball, and it put things into perspective. What are some things that you guys are doing at Tennessee for social injustice, or some things or conversations you're having with your players, or maybe your players having with you guys?
Yeah, great question. I mean, one, so Tennessee's a different animal. Tennessee, there's so much support, like staff-wise. There's so many people who have titles that handle, like there's a nutritionist, that's her deal. We got a strength coach, that's his deal. We got video people, that's their deal. We've got, coach is really a big spiritual guy. So he hired a brother who played pro football that was UT graduate, that works, he's around all the time, Chris Walker, and his job is to pretty much, he talks the scripture and makes real life sense and examples out of the scripture for our guys. So we've got people on campus that are talking about that with them, like that's their job. And then as a person of color, as a brother, I'm gonna add my 2 cents to it and talk to them. And the reality is, I just try to give them the real and be honest about, taking a stance and what that means. Like I remember, and I don't kind of want to get too deep with, with the topic, but it's deep, these days. Colin Kaepernick, when he first took his stand, and he kneeled, I felt like he should have had way more support before he did it by himself. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's a whole lot I would love to say, like a whole lot, but I would want to say it with thousands of people supporting me, black and white, because they can't fire us all, right? So I always feel like this, you have to try to protect what you've built, protect your assets to a point where you can find creative ways, smart ways to communicate and get your point across. I'm proud to say that right now, what's happening right now, I've never seen in my lifetime. The unity is incredible, but we found the right, like we're standing together and having a voice. Like Tennessee just marched like on campus, all the programs, volleyball, basketball. So it wasn't like it was just the brothers marching.
Right.
Everybody was marching. You know what? Nothing happened. In terms of nothing negative happened. People heard the voice. So that's what we're saying, is one voice ain't enough. Go get tens and thousands of voices, all your peers, your classmates, your sororities. Little honey you trying to date, talk to her about what's going on right now first and get their support, and then have an educated, non-threatening way to make your point.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else got anything for Coach Oliver?
I got a question. Coach, my name's Ryan Jackson. I'm a GA at Florida. You talk a lot about higher education, and I was just wondering, how much would you weigh a master's degree versus a job opportunity? And how much do you feel like your master's degrees helped you?
Another great question. I know it's helped me, and everyone's different, because when I start giving my background and where I'm from, I feel like that validates me. Like when people ask me, how'd you grow up? And I'm like, well, I grew up in the projects. If I didn't have the master's, I'm not sure that folks would think I was intelligent enough. Like, and I went to junior college for 1 year. So I've got that stigma. Like I've sat in meetings, not at Tennessee, but other programs where we're talking about junior college kids. I'm sitting there and our staff didn't know I was a junior college kid. And we're talking about kids like they're stupid. So I'm sitting there to myself thinking, I said, you know what? I'm a straight A student. I've gotten A's my whole life. I went to JUCO to try to go Division I. I was a qualifier, but I had that stigma, because I was a JUCO guy, right? So the degree I felt like validated me. I didn't go to Harvard or Stanford or any big school. Dominican college, most folks don't even know about it unless you're from the city, from New York. So to say you got a master's from Buffalo State University and they paid you to go to school and could have got a PhD from UB and they would have paid for it, I like to say that because it just validates that I'm not that dumb, you know, because perception is everything sometimes. You know, folks hear your background and they just assume, you know, he didn't go to a big school, junior college guy, maybe he not that smart. And you'll be surprised the things you're going to have to fight trying to get assistant coaching jobs. For example, I've interviewed with a Hall of Fame coach who I respect big time. I'm sitting in the interview, and now my entire life growing up, you know, my entire teenage years growing up, I thought I was too hood. You know, people said, you know, you talk too hood. Everything was, you know, you know, so I worked on my speech. I took speech classes. I practiced in front of a mirror. I worked on speaking the King's language to get jobs. I'm sitting in a meeting, you know, an interview, and the coach says, you know what, Des, you're pretty polished. Like, you speak really, really well. Can you go on to the neighborhood, you know, to the hood and you know, and talk to prospects and recruits? And my instinct was to say, hell yeah, because I'm from the hood. But I was polite. I kind of went the graduate school route and used big words. And I probably shouldn't have. Like right now, I wouldn't. But I was, you know, this 15 years ago, so I was, you know, less established. But you're going to go through some of that stuff even as a young guy, because maybe you're a young single guy, good looking dude. They may think that the co-ed's on campus. You might want to, you know, there's always going to be some reason in that head coach's mind why they shouldn't hire you. So be prepared to talk about any and everything and to find out what they're looking for and sell them on what's necessary. I've always thought that education, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong overselling education. And it's helped me in recruiting. Honestly, we're in the SEC. You're at Florida. The SEC is a shark league when it comes to recruiting. The guys will stab you in your back in a heartbeat and talk crazy about you. I think I'm most productive with parents because I always tell grandmama or, you know, or the auntie, I'm just like Junior over there, except I made it. And I didn't, you know, Junior gonna play in the SEC. I play for Dominican College, right? I got a hell of a job. I'm gonna help him get a job that's 5 times better than mine. You know, he don't speak very good right now. He speak like I talked when I was 15 and 16 years old. I'm gonna help him change that. And if he's a pro, I'll make another 100 million on top of that. So I've used the education, and I probably couldn't say that without saying I got my master's. You know what I'm saying? So if you're looking at, you know, at doing that and you're questioning, should I take a job and not finish up? Finish up. Get your, you know, go get that degree if you can. It'll help you.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Anyone else got any questions for Coach Oliver? Des, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. Obviously, the vulnerability, transparency, and just authenticity you share with, I thought just really jumped out. And, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, sir. All right.
Whoops, I can't mute myself. Last up, bringing us home tonight is a really good friend of mine. I've actually gotten to know since I think 2008 when I was a senior in high school. He's been at so many North Carolina schools. I can't remember which one. It was at Gardner Webb, I think. And he came to our high school to recruit a kid, and ended up getting to connect with him and have stayed in touch with him ever since. And I think we've really taken our friendship and relationship to another level through this pandemic, getting to know each other and talking and sharing ideas. And, you know, obviously, I've really considered this guy a close friend as well. And make sure just to give him a little prop, he obviously, me still being a younger coach, I was kind of trying to figure something out a couple weeks back, and I kind of might have stepped over a line. I didn't do nothing illegal or anything, but just kind of might have stepped over a line. And he texted me and basically was like, man, just make sure you're careful with all this, and really kind of kept me in line. And, you know, obviously afterwards I kind of took a step back. I was like, man, I really appreciate that. And I think that's what this thing's all about. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Andre Gray at UNCG.
Thanks, Super Dave. Like, you know, you're my dude. everybody, most of these people on the Zoom heard me talk before, and total transparency, when Dave asked me last week to talk, I wanted to say no. I felt like I'm talking too much of these things. I think my story is kind of being overtold now. And the last thing I wanted to do when I got in this business was make stuff about me. Today came, and I was trying to get my thoughts together about what to talk about. And the incident, I guess, happened yesterday. And for me, it was cool that it happened. Like nobody want to talk about like some of the deaths and things that us as minority men has been going through. But the reality is everybody in this country is going through the same things in different ways. And just because somebody don't look like you and don't speak like you or don't walk like you or don't talk like you, don't mean they're not a good person. And something happened with Dave today, and it bothered me to my soul that it happened. Well, yesterday. And I'll tell you, everybody on the Zoom, and you can take it however you want to, if you don't have a good heart and you don't care about people, you shouldn't be working with kids. You shouldn't be in this business. If you're in this mess for the money or you're in it for the fame, please get out. Go rap, go sing, go dance. Don't be in this business if you're not about being good to people and being good to these kids. I thought it was extremely disrespectful what the guy tweeted out about Dave. I don't know him personally, but if I did, I would definitely feel it was my duty to step to him face to face. I don't want to call him. I don't want to tweet at him. I would like to have a conversation with him face to face. And Dave, I'm sorry for putting your business out there, but I just think it needs to be said to you guys. There's a lot of young coaches in this room. If you don't have a pure heart, like if you're not about balling, about the kids, don't come in here. We don't want you here. And if I find that you're one of those dudes personally, I'm gonna do everything I can not to help you get jobs and make sure you don't get jobs. And I'll put that on my mom and my grandma and everybody else I love. And I'm sorry about going on the rant to start because I know everybody know I clown and stuff a little bit, but I just felt the need to get that off my chest. All right. But Dre Gray, everybody call me Dre Gray. If you're not familiar with me, I wasn't exactly sure how to start this thing. I'm a North Carolina guy. Most people don't realize I actually wasn't born in North Carolina. I was born in Harlem, New York. I spent my first 10, 11 years up there. Second thing a lot of people don't realize about me, because I'm such a nice guy, I'm a child of a crackhead. I lived with my mom for 4 years total in life. I spent years in YMCAs. I spent days in the streets. I was in foster care for 2 years, and I ended up in North Carolina with my grandmother. And I think all those experiences coming up has helped me develop into who I am today. Where it does is told me not to give up, to keep fighting, keep pushing. Don't judge a book by its cover. And I use those same lessons to help me in this business now. I know if people would have judged me by what I look like and my background initially, I wouldn't be sitting here as a college basketball coach today. If you looked at my record, if you pull up my police record and things of that nature right now, I shouldn't be sitting here. So a lot of my businesses, I got lucky. Some people believed in me. I had a little bit of talent, and people just kept on giving me chances. And that's one thing I always try to do in this profession, is try to give other people chances and try to help raise up the people behind me and pull them together. My careers, I played football at a school called Fayetteville State University, HBCU in North Carolina. I was probably the worst football player on the roster. I found out quick I sucked. I played football because I was 6'4", 6'5", and had pretty good hands. Didn't have a love for the game. But my coach told me that a 6'5" guy in football could make some money. A 6'5" guy in basketball is just a dime a dozen. So I chose to go the football route. Got out there doing 3-a-days, hated it, stopped, started chasing women, almost got myself kicked out of school academically, had to find a new path. And one of my high school teammates actually played football at the other college in town, which is Methodist College, a Division III school. And I'll never forget, I was at a party with him one day, and I was just talking junk, probably a little tipsy. And I told him, hey, man, tell that coach over there I'm coming to play for y'all. And I met for him to tell the football coach, and he ended up saying it to the basketball coach. The basketball coach called me and asked me to come over and try out. And at first I was like, man, I ain't about to go over there and try out for no dang on basketball team. But I don't know what made me do it, but something in my heart made me just go over there and try out. And I guess I was pretty good for Division III. I never claimed to be an All-American, but for that level, I was 6'5", fairly athletic, yada, yada, yada. So he offered me a chance to play on his team. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm the first in my family. I'm a baby of 6. I'm the first to finish high school, the only to finish high school, the only to go to college. So when I got off to a bad start at Fayetteville State, I didn't know like the whole rules to transfer and things of that nature. So I went and tried out, did pretty good. He offered me a spot. I sat in his office, and I was a bit of a big mouth during those days. I told him, dude, I'm sorry. I wasted your time. I ain't got no grades to come to your college. And I didn't know when you transfer schools, you get a brand new GPA. And he was the first person to tell me that. So he got up, he closed his door, he sat me down and said, hey, man, like, bring me your transcripts. Bring me your transcripts. So I was like, all right. And I was just, when I said it to him, I still had no intentions of going back. So I walked out the office, and something in my heart again told me to go to my high school, which is 45 minutes away, and grab my high school transcripts and take it to him. So I took him my high school and my college transcripts. He put them on his desk, and he looked at him and said, Dre, you're actually a really good student. I don't know what your grades, what was wrong with you at Fayetteville State, but by coming here, you get a brand new start. You get a brand new GPA. All these D's and F's ain't transferring, but you get to start over from scratch. And that was the moment I decided I wanted to teach. I said, if I get my grades up, that spring semester at Fayetteville State, I retook 18 hours. The whole summer, I took 18 more hours to get my GPA high enough to transfer. So I walked into the doors at Methodist College. I went in there as a basketball player and as an education major. And my whole goal was I wanted to graduate, I wanted to teach. I wanted to be the offensive coordinator for the football team at East Bladen High School. So I did education. I got my degree in education. I applied for jobs back home in Bladen County. They wouldn't hire me, them clowns. Forget them people. I can't stand them. But they wouldn't hire me. My first job was at Clayton Middle School outside of Raleigh. I coached football and basketball. And that experience is what made me draw to basketball. I learned during that time that by coaching football, if you're bigger, faster, and stronger, unless you just make terrible decisions, you're going to win more times than not. In basketball, you can do things that kind of level the playing field. You don't have to be the most talented team in basketball to win, especially at the high school level. I wasn't even thinking about college at the time. I was thinking about high school. Like, if you're small, you can hold the ball. You can learn some funky zones. You can run some junk defenses. You can do all kinds of fancy things to kind of give yourself a chance in basketball. So that what got my mind stimulated to start trying to coach basketball. So my next job was at Oxford Webb, another school in North Carolina. This one is north of Raleigh. And I had the same thing. I was coaching both. And now I'm dealing with a higher level kid. I had a kid that wound up leaving the state of North Carolina and scoring. And he was getting recruited by a lot of schools. And his process of getting recruited, it was got my wheels spinning again. I was like, man, like, not only I might be able to coach basketball, but now I can actually go get the players I want to coach. And on top of that, if I get to the college level, I could go find kids like me and try to give them a chance to go to school too. I could tell these kids my story. So I started going crazy. I started working camps. I was working 5-star camps, and I got in my first school camp, which was Duke. During those days, everybody worked camps. It was Division I, Division II, GAs. Everybody worked camps together. So at 5-star, my first year working 5-star camp, for example, it was 4 of us on the station. I was doing the rebound station, and I was the 4th person in charge of that rebound station. It was like a Division I head coach was coaching it. It was like 2 Division I assistants as his assistants, and my job was pretty much taking notes on what he was talking about. And the whole goal was at 5-star was to be the guy one day who got to do the teaching. Like, if you got to lead the station, that was like the greatest thing ever. And I'll never forget, I had this stupid series of rebounding drills that I learned from the coach I learned the first time I worked camp that I always would do. And they got with Garfinkel, who kind of liked me, and the Klein guys started liking me. So they kept on inviting me back to camp. And I became the rebound station guy at Duke's at 5-star post camp. And that's kind of how I got my reputation as being able to coach a little bit. Methodist College had a position open up. The guy who coached me was the AD at the time, and my assistant was the head coach. I was telling them this crazy idea. I wanted to get into college basketball. The first person I had to talk into doing that was my wife. At this time, my wife and I was married. I told her, I tell you, like, and she know how I am. When I get something in my head, it's kind of hard for me to get it out. And I kept talking to her about wanting to do college basketball, And I was a high school teacher / football / basketball coach. So I was making $37,000, $38,000 a year. And Methodist College had a position open. I paid $2,000. And for $2,000 split over 10 months, my checks was $187 a month after taxes. The rest of the other 2 months of the year, I had to actually work camps to kind of feed myself. My wife let me make that sacrifice to try to pursue college. And I still do this to her today. Every time I go to try to get a new job, I say, give me 18 months. Give me 18 months to figure it out. If after 18 months, if I can't make it work, we'll do something different. And that's how I talked to her and let me do in college. I said, give me 18 months. We was going back to Fayetteville. I went to college at. And I just wanted to try my shot at college basketball. So I got to the college basketball level, not knowing much about the profession. I didn't have any coaching role models. Like most of you guys probably grew up wanting to be coaches and wanting to be college coaches. I didn't have that plan. Most of my thoughts early on was, shit, whether or not I was going to eat or not. I wasn't thinking about coaching and what job I was going to have. I was worried about food and if the lights were going to be on when I got home. So once I got this desire to try to coach, my wife allowed me to do it. And I was the head coach of the JVs, and I was the assistant coach for the varsity. And at that school, they had 4 basketball teams in one gym. So the varsity teams practiced first, the JVs went last. So the varsity team practiced at 4 o'clock. My JV practice sometimes went to start at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And to try to supplement my income, I wanted to take a job at a local high school. And I was the Safe Schools Coordinator assistant. And what that meant, I wrote tardy passes and broke up fights. But the kicker was I had to be there before the first bus got there. I couldn't leave till the last bus left. So my work day, my first 2 years of college went from, I used to get up about 5 o'clock in the morning because at the Division III level, we didn't have managers and things like that. We had a couple of volunteers that lived in Raleigh. So I get up and do our laundry for my JV team. And then I'd go to work at Douglasburg High School, get off work at 3:30 when the last bus left, run over to Methodist, coach the varsity team first. With the 2 girl teams were practicing, that's why I did all my recruiting calls and watched my film. My JVs would start about 11 o'clock on most nights. I didn't understand and didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be coaching those kids like a real team. So I'll plan 2-hour practices. So we go from 11 to 1. I get off, eat some oodles and noodles or whatever we had around the house, and then start my day over and over again. The cool thing for me doing that path was I didn't know that wasn't what Coach K was doing. I thought that's what all college coaches were doing. I didn't know all this money that was involved in this business. So, and I go back to my point earlier, like make sure when you come into this thing, you come in with a pure heart. You're coming in for the right reasons. And the blessing of me starting Division III was that every time we showed up in the gym at 11 o'clock, my first team had but 8 kids. 2 of them played for their high school team. The other 6 didn't make the high school team. But every time those guys came in the gym, I knew they really wanted to be there. So that gave me energy to want to be there too. Because they could have quit at any moment. But they kept on coming, they kept on showing up, and that was really set the foundation for the rest of my career. I fast forward, after a couple of years doing Methodist, I decided I wanted to, I got this, again, I'm kind of crazy, I got a new idea. I said, it'd be kind of cool. Not only, I want to try to coach college, but how about I try to find a way to pay for kids to play as well? Like, I was like, damn, it'd be kind of cool. I can not only coach basketball, I can help kids get in school, but now I can help them pay for school. So I started pursuing higher level jobs. So my first job above the Division III level was at Division II level. Went to school, Wingate University. Again, had some really good success, recruited some really good players and had some really good teams. And kind of the same deal. I talked my wife into doing it. I said, give me 18 months, we'll make it work. We wound up staying there 4 years. And my last year, they went to the Final 8 at the Division II level. A couple of kids wanted to be All-Americans. And again, my wheels started going crazy again. Like, hey, man, I want to try a new challenge. I not only want to coach basketball, but I want to try to help kids get in school. And I want to help them go to school free. But now, personally, I want to try to win the whole freaking thing. I want to win I want to be the guy at the end of the day cutting down nets at the highest of levels. And that was what made me decide to pursue the Division I route. And a little bit of advice to some of you young guys that's just starting in the business or fighting through this business. one of my best friends, I don't know if he's on here or not, but he had to talk me out of quitting about once a week. About once a week when I was a Division II coach, I used to get so frustrated with the process of how guys get jobs and why I wasn't getting hired. I got so caught up in watching other people's move in this business who I felt like I was better than. I remember talking junk about, man, if I was a coach at Presbyterian College, I'd sign the #1 recruiting class in the country. And that was ignorant because I didn't understand how this stuff worked. But once I got into the business and once I moved up to the Division I level, my first job was at Gardner-Webb University. And I only got that job because of relationship. And a coach at Lander University, a guy named Bruce Evans, now at North Florida. Some of you guys may know him. My wife is from a town called Greenwood, South Carolina. When I used to go see my wife in Greenwood, I used to stop by Lander and see Bruce. And didn't want anything from him. He just was a black man in college coaching who I thought was pretty nice. Long and behold, my first Division I opportunity came from Rich Scruggs, who he worked for at Gardner-Webb, and he recommended me for the job. And that's how I got my break into Division I. Just simple as that. Just going home with my wife on Christmas and Easter and stuff like that and build the relationship. So my first Division I job was at Gardner-Webb.
Well, too bad I can't. Sleep in here.
My third game or so at Gardner-Webb, we beat Kentucky in the preseason IT. I remember sitting around with my chest out like, man, this shit too easy. Well, all these guys struggling to coach a Division I ball, man. I won at Kentucky my third game. I ain't gonna tell you I was so scared before the game that I walked to the wrong bench before the game. One place I grabbed my arm and point me towards the right bench because I've never been in a Coliseum that big before. But my first Division I job was at Gardner-Webb. One of my mentors before that point was a guy named Larry Hunter, who was at Western Carolina at the time. So year 2 in Division I coached with Larry Hunter. I spent 3 years with Larry. Larry was probably my most influential basketball coach that I worked with. He made me think of basketball in a different way. He made me think about why stuff happens. Before that point, I always make suggestions while I'm thinking about why. I'm like, hey, coach, we need to go 2-3 zone. Larry Hunter, you go in 2-3 zone because of what? Like, why you want us to go zone? Can this guy do that? Like, you got to have reasoning behind stuff. So Larry Hunter was beautiful for that. My next job was at UNC Wilmington with Buzz Peterson. Buzz was great for my career because Buzz taught me the business. It was the first time in my career I got fired as a staff. And that was so eye-opening for me. Again, like I told you a little bit earlier, I'm coming to the game with no real map. So my career was kind of taking off. I went from Methodist to Wingate to Gardner-Webb to Western to Wilmington. I went from a guy who averaged, I don't know, about 4 points a game at Methodist College to being on the staff of Buzz Peterson, who at that time was one of the hottest guys in college basketball. Everybody knows he's Michael Jordan's teammate. His reference list was Pat Summitt, Dean Smith, and Michael Jordan. How about that for a reference list? And we, for whatever reason, didn't get done at UNC Wilmington. And when we got let go as a staff, it taught me 2 things. It taught me, hey, in this business, like, winning games is ultra, ultra important. No matter what excuse you make for not winning games, if you're not winning, the school gonna move you up out of there. The second thing it taught me is like you learn a lot about your circle once you let go as an assistant coach. I remember when I was hot, when I was moving to job, and everybody's like, oh, Dre Gray, you don't sit still, and I'm doubling my salary every year and changing conferences and going from the Southern Conference to the old CAA back when VCU and George Mason and Old Dominion and all them guys was in there. Well, I spend all day on my freaking phone. I'm walking around campus, my phone in my hand, because I'm the man. Coaches wanted to talk to me and hear my advice on kids and all kinds of stuff. We got let go from Wilmington. The calls stopped coming. Like guys that I thought was really good friends of mine, like some dudes I haven't spoke to this day. Some of them has come back around since my career got going again, but I don't forget. I didn't forget who the guys were who ain't talked to me when I didn't have a job. Well, that's one lesson I took from being fired. Or 2 is, number 1, you gotta find a way to win. The only way you're gonna win is with good people. You gotta have good people that's good players. If you don't have those 2 things combined, you're not going to win. The second thing is like, try to build as many pure relationships as you can. everybody keeps saying about networking. Like networking is a word that's good, but I don't think so. It's about building relationships, because the relationships and stuff is going to carry over time. Networking going to come and go. The relationships was going to carry over time. But again, fast forward through my career, again, got in a bit of a dark space when we got fired at Wilmington. I was one of those guys who felt like I always was deserved something once I got hot. I felt like the world owed me. When I was at Wingate, for example, I thought I deserved to be a Division I coach and felt like the business was slighting me. When I was going through Wilmington, I felt like the business owed me head coaching jobs. So I got frustrated with it. So I made a decision after Wilmington to go the HBCU route. And I didn't do it out of love for HBCU per se, because I went to Fayetteville State, but I did it because I thought it was going to be easier. I was like, hey, it'd be easier for me to get a head job by going to Winston-Salem State. It's the best job in that league. The only way you don't win there if you're an idiot. So I said, I'll go here a couple of years, help this guy win, move him on back out of here, and then I can take over this program. I made that decision for that reason only. Like, this is going to be the easiest way for me to get a head job. And I got there and I realized it wasn't that step at that stage of my career. It wasn't for me. It was a bigger calling for me personally than to be in there with him. But the cool thing about it, again, is you learn from every situation is I got to see a guy start a program from the very first day. And that was so eye-opening to me. I was like, man, like the stuff that this guy is going through right now, I didn't even give none of it no thought until watching him go through it. Like I have friends and I have people I mentor in this business, but I never really gave no real thought about what personalities and what people would mesh well with me when I started building the staff. The guy hired me because I was like Dre Gray. I'm Dre Gray, who know everybody in North Carolina. He didn't know who I was about. He had no idea what I was about as a person. And we're not enemies or beef or anything, but our personalities didn't necessarily mesh on that staff. And that's the one thing I took from that situation. If I am blessed to get a job, I know what kind of people balances me the best. Like I'm comfortable with what I am as a person, so I know what kind of people I need around me. And that's the one thing I took from that job at Winston was, hey man, you better think about what kind of people you need around you to be successful. My following job, I went back to Division I at UNC Charlotte with Mark Price. Again, had another really good experience. Learned a lot from him. I got to watch for the second time somebody start their program from scratch, but to do it at the Division I level, which was a whole different avenue. I learned so much about the differences between implementing offense and defense at the NBA level versus college level. And stuff that I didn't quite understand. I think it's super important for me as a coach to understand the differences in the two games because they played so differently. The skills that required to play at the NBA level are so different from the ones that required at the college level. So working with an NBA guy has taught me that so much about that. And then this last job, I've been with Wes Miller. This is going into year 3 at UNC Greensboro. And Wes is really, really good in that he's probably been the best combination of all my head coaches so far. He makes me challenges myself. He makes me uncomfortable. And nothing grows without being uncomfortable. I know when I hang up the Zoom call, I better have my stuff in order before we have our meeting in the morning. I better make sure I talk to all my recruits. I better make sure I have some updates on scheduling, which is one of my responsibilities. I better make sure I have all my guys on my roster that I'm responsible for, that the academics was covered. So he makes me uncomfortable, so he allows me to grow. And then on top of that, he also is really good at all the stuff that we just mentioned. He's really hands-on with his players. He does a good job of developing plans for his guys. So for me, this situation here has been really good for my growth as I try to turn the corner and trying to hopefully get my own program one day. But that's my college career. I try to get through it as quickly as possible. I know these Zooms get late. Glad some faces popped up on the Zoom. I hate talking to those little black boxes, so that's cool. I got to actually see some people while I was talking. But that's all I got. Anybody have any questions? I'll be more than happy to answer.
I got a question, Dre. Pete. Yeah, from working with you, I worked with you for a year, so I know how hard you work and how you develop. But in North Carolina, you're known as the guy to go through to get kids in recruiting. Working for Coach Miller, how has that kind of narrowed the gap of the type of kid that you want to get and changed over the course of your time there? Because you know how he wants to be his hands on his kids and what he wants, and how has that changed from you being there from the past where I just want to get the best kids possible? Help us win some games.
So you exaggerate a little bit. You ain't gotta come through me to get no kids, but I could chop your neck off if I want to. I could do that for you though. But one of the cool things working for coach, to be honest, and this is something else I learned through my experiences, the guys that I worked for who's been most successful had a clear idea of what kind of kid they could coach. And it helps me as an assistant going on the road, because when I watch a kid play, I can know right away what kind of kid functions with Wes Miller. It's not about the kid that's I love the most, it's the kid that can play for that guy the most. That's important. And coach does so much communicating with us, and he spends so much time on the court with our guys that it's pretty evident of what kind of kid that can function for him and which ones can't. Some of the mistakes I've made in my career in recruiting was times where I've taken jobs, and in my first month, my first weeks on the job, because I'm new, I'm trying to build a rep for myself, I start pushing kids on the coach, or I start trying to sign a kid that I don't even know the head coach that well yet and know what kind of kid he could coach. But that's probably the most important thing. Wes kind of make it crystal clear what kind of kid he coach. If you're around him like you have been, Tim, for a couple of months, it took me a couple of months to realize what kind of kid is best for him. But now that I have a good grasp of that, I don't feel like I'll make many more mistakes and trying to get him some players.
Coach Dre, Sean Tucker, Chesapeake College, women's basketball. Got a question. A lot of times, as coaches, we get caught up because we have to do, our jobs for our teams and work to try to make our head coach look the best, as possible. During this time of quarantine, I've got to know you, and you're doing this Zoom, like Dave does this Zoom, and also Ryan does this Zoom. How has it helped you providing a platform for others, and you get a chance to listen to their story? Moving forward, what do you think some things that you're going to take from, these Zooms that you started and these other guys have started?
To be honest, one thing, I talked about a little bit earlier, I have to, sometimes in this process, I've kind of got lost in why I'm doing this. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the level and the money because we need money to eat, right? Like you can't, if you don't have no money, you're going to have a roof over your head, you don't get nothing to eat. So that's a necessity. But the one thing I've learned about myself, and I knew it early in my career and young in life, and I kind of lost sight of it, but I need people. People is where I get my energy from. So the more I talk and interact with people, the more energized I get personally. I know some people is not like that way, but the more conversations I can have, the more my mind gets stimulated and the more energy I can pick up. And the more I get, the more I feel like spreading. I've never been an ego guy. As far as like, I don't care if somebody else has success. I don't mind trying to help somebody else get a kid or somebody else get a job. I really don't. So that's probably the biggest thing. It's kind of reminding me like why I do this and what I'm about, and then help build my energy back up, to be honest with you.
Coach Gray, David Belfield from West Point. Can you talk a little about your approach to when you join an already established staff compared to, when you get on the ground floor like you did with Coach Price?
Again, it kind of comes back to my personality. I think probably if you ask most people that worked with me, the first thing they say is I'm easy to work with. I'm not.
Tim Pete said that's not true.
I'm not afraid to let somebody else bloom. So if you're somebody that I really feel that you're better at it than I am, I'm okay with you doing it. Like some guys feel like they gotta have all the hands on everything and the power and show that they're the assistant coach or you're just the GA. I never really felt that. I just want to win. And the one thing I learned in this business, if you win, you increase your chances of having the job the next year. So if you're a better workout guy than me, hey, have at it. You work those guys out, I'll come and support you. I'll tell those guys, hey man, like David, man, you work shit out. Like David, workouts are awesome. I never had an ego with that. If it came to somebody else to scout, I'm gonna do everything I can to help them when they scouts. So I just don't have an ego with that stuff. I don't care. I just want to win. I just want games. I want to help these kids grow. And that's all that motivates me. So it makes it easy. That hasn't had that problem at all.
Oh, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
So Will used to work for you at UNCG.
He didn't work for me.
I did. But you talked about your relationship with the staff at Winston State, touched on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ever blessed, which I think you will, get the chance to be a head coach in the business, how much emphasis would you put on having, you talked about people that fits you, but how much emphasis would you put on having people around you on your staff that you get along with? Or do you think it doesn't need to be a big emphasis as long as y'all balance each other out?
I think it's both. I definitely want people around me that I like to be around. Nobody wants like a negative nanny around Nancy around them all the time. So I definitely wouldn't want that kind of personality around me, but I would want somebody that challenges me. I know, like, for example, I always use the player. For example, if you put me in the gym of a bunch of players, if you tell me to pick out who I like best, it's going to be some 6'5" to 6'7" tweener, some long dude who don't have quite a position, may or may not be able to shoot. But I know my eye, that's where my eye naturally gravitates to. I'm going to need somebody on my staff who sees a point guard. Because I know you can't win without a true point or a guy that could run your team and get guys the ball. But my eye don't watch that naturally. My eye watches wings naturally. And also, I can't stand a traditional big, like a traditional post. Those guys drive me nuts. But I know it's a necessity if you're going to win games. So that's stuff that, and just from a recruiting standpoint, I know I need guys on my staff that's going to challenge me and say, hey, coach, we got to this freaking big guy. Like, you can't be out there with 6'5" dudes, trying to switch everything. Because I know that's the way my mind works. And the same thing with the non-basketball related stuff. Now, I've done everything that you could imagine in coaching. I've had that responsibility. I've ran camps. I've done scheduling. I've done equipment. I've done compliance. I've done everything that you could even think about doing in this profession. But I know what I'm passionate about. Like, I'm not really passionate about some of those jobs. So I got to make sure I hire people that have some passion in some of those things. If that makes sense. I can't stand, like, I know Adam Hood, I don't know if he's on this one. He loved the math and the analytics, and the math of scheduling is so important, but that's not something I'm real fired up about, you know? So I know I need people that have that balance in me in those ways as well. It's not only just about the personal, but I'm not going to bring nobody around me that I don't like as a person.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Gray, I have a question for you.
All right, BT.
Byron Taylor, free agent. You mentioned that Winston-Salem State and Charlotte, you came in, just as the program was beginning from the ground up. What did you learn from that experience?
The first thing is, like, you better have a plan. And your plan probably ain't going to work, but you better have one. And if you have one, you'll be able to tweak off of it. I think of both of those situations, and I love both guys are really good people. So I don't want this to come off like I'm bashing former coaches and things of that nature. But I don't think if we did have a plan, we didn't make it clear to our kids, and we didn't have a true philosophy on like how he is going about recruiting and how he's going to play. So we never had nothing to adjust because we never had a foundation. Does that make sense? And that's probably the thing that I took most from both of those situations. Like, I'm not saying your plan going to work and you're probably going to throw it out the window anyway, but at least you got something to pivot off of. When you have 5, 6 different people going in different directions, it's hard to tweak that, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll ask one similar to them. Oh, go ahead, G.
Andre Gray, Damalia Halagba, University of South Dakota. How are you? My question for you is, you talked about how you had a personality clash with a guy at Winston-Salem. How did you navigate that while you were there with that personality clash?
And personality clash part is the wrong word. We just had different philosophies on doing right by people and what we felt was doing right by people was. When he hired me, he didn't know me at all. And if he would have took some time to kind of do some research on me, he would have realized that my reputation is kind of what it is. Everybody I worked with and everybody I coached, I'm a really good dude. Like, I'm not perfect. I have some demons like everybody else in the world. Mm-hmm. But one thing I'm not built on, I'm not going to try to snake somebody for their job. I'm not going to talk behind somebody's back to try to get their position. That's not how I work. I'll just leave you. I was that same way when I dated. I'm not going to just play around with you. I just leave you. Like I could get another job. And as much as I tried to explain to him that I was at Winston because I wanted to be at Winston, we could never get on the same page that way. I don't know what his prior experiences was like, but for whatever reason, it's a little paranoid of me. Maybe because I had more experience than him or a little bit older than him. I don't know what it was. For whatever reason, it's a little bit paranoid of me. And we have conversations all the time. Like, dude, I don't want your job. Like all my experiences, if you get fired, I get fired, and I can't eat. So I ain't trying to not eat. So let's try to win this thing together. So I probably chose a bad choice of words. There's more, we just couldn't get on the same page.
Hello, Coach. Darrell Robinson, head boys basketball coach at Danville High School in Illinois. How you doing? Out of all, you had some unique experiences. Out of all the experiences you had, which one you felt taught you the most?
Man, you learn so much. Like, I don't think there's a day that go by and learn something. Like every experience you learn, you pick up from. We just talked about the two, like probably Winston was probably one of the worst ones, but even that was a blessing. Like, I learned so much about what I need to be thinking before I take a job somewhere. And those kids kind of was awesome. They loved playing ball so much. So be in the gym with those guys every day was unbelievable. And I go backwards from, and I don't want to bore you, but like this job here, like I'm uncomfortable. I've learned that I know that I'm best when I'm uncomfortable. I grow more when I'm uncomfortable. So you learn that from here. And at Charlotte or Mark, it taught me so much about reading ball screens and the differences between the NBA and college. So that was awesome. Like learning how the floor spacing is so different than NBA, and helps our defense is so different than NBA. So that was a plus and the blessing. And the guys I got to work with at both places was phenomenal. At Weston, we talked about Larry Hunter was so detail oriented. So that was a blessing. At Wingate, my head coach there, Parker LaKilla, let me pretty much run the program. Like, we were signing kids there my last 2 or 3 years that he didn't meet. He met them the first day of class. I got to do all the off-season conditioning and things of that nature in that program. So that was a blessing. Dave Smith at Methodist with the JV program down there, I got to do everything with the JV program. Any offense, any defense I wanted to run with them, I got to do. So that was a blessing. So I try to learn. I learned from everything. I had so many great people, from the volunteers up to the full-time staff. I just learned so much. It's been beautiful. I can't say I haven't learned from any situation.
Good. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Dre, what's going on? It's Cody Cohen. How are you?
How you doing, Cody?
Good. I wanted to ask you, you kind of mentioned how you learned that you're at your best when you're uncomfortable, and how Coach Miller kind of pushes you to be that way. Have you kind of developed some, I guess, tools or just ways that you can kind of make yourself uncomfortable on your own to push yourself, regardless of who you're working for or what you're doing or anything like that?
Yeah, just I like to read. And that challenges me. It sounds silly, but it challenges my mind. When my mind is turning, is when I think I work best. When I get comfortable, I just kind of relax. And I've learned in this business and in my career that I need both. I need the balance of both. And when I need to kick back and relax, I could do that as well. But when I'm trying to focus on the profession at hand, I need to always be working and get my mind going, trying to figure out what I got to do next, because there's always something that needs to be done. So with Russ Miller, it allows me, or it makes me, or it helps me realize, hey man, it's somebody I need to be talking to. It's something I need to be doing at all times, because he's always going to be checking behind you. On my personal level, it's about my goals and things I want to pursue and things I want to accomplish. So even if Wes wasn't there to challenge me per se, the pressure to try to achieve my goals is what's going to push me.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Dre, I'll ask you one kind of similar to what I asked Dez. Obviously, you've worked for a lot of head coaches, and obviously people know you. You know, you do a really good job recruiting and other areas. How have you, as you've gone to different staffs, kind of adapted to maybe fill a hole on some staffs where you might not have had to fill that certain role, but a different one on another staff?
Yeah, I think I could adapt. And again, that go back to me being kind of egoless. I've had every role you could imagine. It's funny, like if you ask different players for different teams I coach, they have different. They all gonna say I'm funny, and they all gonna say I'm a pretty good dude. But they all will have different perceptions of what I bring to the table. I've been on staffs where I had to be the angry guy, where I had to be the guy cussing dudes out and beating up their ass. But I've been on staffs where I kind of got to be the laid back guy. I'm just the uncle, father figure type to them. So I could adapt to either way, and I'm comfortable being in any environment. I think it's one of the things that helped me in recruiting as well. I'm comfortable to go sitting in the middle of redneck country in Western North Carolina as I am sitting in the hood in New York. I could make myself be comfortable in any environment. And probably part of that is the way I grew up. I had to kind of figure out a way to survive all the time. So, but I took that, and it kind of helps me in this career now.
Coach Dre, I got a question.
Sure.
Addison Smith, Night Riders Elite. Being that you've been in the game for a while, over 20 years, how have you been able to continue to find that balance between work and family over your career?
Now, to be honest with you, Addison, it's probably one of the things I probably did the worst job of. And here, as the last, I'll say 5-6 years, is probably where I got best at it. My first few years when I was trying to climb the ladder in this business, I was gone so much. I bet I was, if it's 365 days in a year, I bet I was probably spending 100 days in my own bed with my wife a year, max, if it was that many. I was so busy trying to chase players and chase levels and chase checks that I forgot about her. And what changed my life, and just to be transparent here, my wife got diagnosed with MS a few years ago. And when she got diagnosed with MS, and you know, I was looking at her one day, and I felt like I missed all her 20s and 30s. I looked at her, and she had gray hair growing up in the front of her head. And I was like, damn, when the hell she get gray hair? And after that point, that's when I decided, like, you know what? Like, I'm always going to, like, make time for my wife. So when I first walk home every day, if I'm on the phone, I try to get off. She go to bed early, so I know if I just got to give her some time during that block of time where she's up. So usually about 7 to 9, I really try to make it about her and talk to her and listen to her talk, and we'll play games and whatever she want to do, watch her little corny shows, because I know she's going to eventually fall asleep. So when she falls asleep, I can find time to do the things I want to do, like this. But then what I do, I get up with her in the morning because my wife still works. So I get up in the morning with her, and when she get up, during the pandemic was awesome because I actually drove her back and forth to work. But now I just get up and I just talk to her before she leave. We kind of hang out, and I watch her eat breakfast and things of that nature. So I had to find that. I had to find that as I gotten older. It's something I probably didn't appreciate as much when I was a young guy.
I appreciate that.
Anyone got any more questions for Dre?
Matt Schultes, what's up, boy? I just saw you pop up on screen.
What's up, Coach? How you doing?
Chill, man.
Coach Gray, I don't have a question. I just have a statement. Thank you for what you said when you started. I hope people are listening. That was very powerful.
No questions. I close like the one thing, and again, and sometimes I'm corny and I'm a bit of an optimist. You guys that don't know, I actually do like a little silly Zoom on Sunday nights for them. And I started doing it as a way that I always felt guilty about. I always talk about being the guy that's for the people and trying to help people. And I was getting frustrated with how I could help. And I always try to mentor guys that I've been around. But I feel like there's so many more guys out there that I could be helping. So we started doing a Zoom on Sunday nights with some guys, bringing in coaches to talk to them and things of that nature, just for that reason. I go back to what I started the Zoom with, and please come into this business with a pure heart. Like, the game is beautiful. It took a child of a crack kid and put me in the top, I guess, 5% of American salaries just by the little orange ball. So please, like, love the game, love the ball, and do right by people. Do right by people. If you're not in this thing for the people and for helping these kids grow, like, leave. Because people like you will make the business nasty, and what's going to tear it down eventually if we keep on going the path we are. But thank you guys for staying up with me late. I know it's late at night. I know I mumble and ramble, but if anybody needs anything from me, most of you guys, some of you guys in here know me anyway. I'll make sure I text my cell number in the chat. I think a lot of you guys have it already, and people that know me know I'm pretty good about getting back at you. Not always on time, but I get there when you need me. And I mean that for real. If you're somebody that's got a good heart and want some help and advice in this business, I don't mind sharing that at all. But thank you guys so much for staying up with me tonight. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dre. Thanks everybody for being on. I'm kind of deciding whether to do it on Labor Day or not next week. So we'll have that announcement soon. But obviously, thanks Dre, and definitely recommend his Sunday night Zoom. And also Ryan Price does a deal on Tuesday night, Let's Grow. So definitely those are two Zooms you definitely want to be on. And then Alvin Brooks does one on Wednesday nights. What's it called, Sean?
Be ready.
Making sure you were. So, but no, everybody, thanks everybody, and have a good night, and hope y'all have a good holiday weekend.
Super Dave.